The three classical psychophysical methods we have discussed, a more contemporary method is called signal detection. According to the theory of signal detection, our perception in general is controlled by evidence and decision processes, which means that we may be hearing something, but we choose or we decide to report it or not report it, or report it at an intensity that is lower or higher than actual intensity of the stimulus. A signal or stimulus creates hypothetical evidence that depends on the intensity of the signal and the acuity of the observer, which partly determine a yes response. Remember, in our experiments, we are always asking, is this weight equal to this weight? Is this light visible? Can you hear the sound? So we are asking for a yes response. There are other determiners of a decision to say yes. There is a stimulus present, including factors that influence the willingness of the observer to say a signal is present. Signal detection theory assumes that noise, a disturbance that can be confused with signals, is always present when a human attempts to detect signals. This background disturbance, owing to such things as environmental changes, equipment changes, spontaneous neural activity, and direct experimental manipulation. Typical experiments: in trial 1, there's a flashlight, then white noise. In another trial, flashlight, white noise, and the tone, which is the signal tone. And response can be yes or no. The white noise is usually the noise if, without any program going on, you turn on your radio and you hear this buzzing, zooming kind of noise. It's called white noise. Signal detection theory assumes that any stimulus, even noise, produces distribution of evidence. The evidence on each trial is only one point, and the distributions are built up from many trials, each occurring at different point in time. Since evidence cannot be directly observed, the distribution for stimulus trials and for noise trials are hypothetical. They are assumed. The evidence arising from a trial for which only noise occurred will tend to be small. Over many trials, a hypothetical distribution with a small mean will be established. When a signal plus noise is presented, the evidence will be larger, क्योंकि आप tone भी दे रहे हैं और white noise भी आ रही है, so that a distribution with a greater mean will be formed over many trials. Repeated trials generate two distribution, one for noise only and one for signal plus noise. So usually the distribution is like this. The frequency is on the y-axis and the magnitude of evidence is on the x-axis. Now the signal and the sensory acuity, कितना तेज है वो, कितना perceive कर रहे हैं उसको, उससे डिटरमिन होता है कि इनका ओवरलैप कहाँ पे आ रहा है और इन दोनों में जो फर्क आ रहा है. A stronger signal or a more sensitive observer would move the signal plus noise distribution to the right, towards the strong end of the axis. So, correctly detecting a signal when it is presented is called a hit, and incorrectly responding yes when only noise is presented is called the false alarm. Receiver operating characteristic is called when we plot percentage of false alarms and percentage of hits on two axes. And this curve usually curves according to whether you tend to say yes more often, a liberal criteria, or a conservative criteria where you are more careful about saying yes and say no more often. A major advantage of this theory over a classical psychophysical procedure is that it measures both sensitivity and response bias. There is an experiment on uh, using aspirin, whether taking aspirin, which is an analgesic, it lowers the pain, make the people report that they do not feel that much pain from an electric shock. So they are actually taking the aspirin, they are reporting less pain at higher levels of electric shock. This was only possible with signal detection theory. Most of our everyday experience does not happen in absolute silence of the laboratory. So we are hearing a lot of sounds around us. And also, our experience happens above threshold. Measuring these above threshold perception involves another technique, which is called magnitude estimation. अगर हम किसी इंटेंसिटी को टोन की डबल कर दें तो क्या हमें वो डबल ऊंची लगती है, या लाइट को डबल उसका इंटेंसिटी को बढ़ा दें तो क्या वो हमें ट्वाइस एज ब्राइट लगती है? एस स्टीवंस ने एक टेक्निक डेवलप की थी जिसे स्केलिंग और मैग्नीट्यूड एस्टिमेशन कहते हैं. ये इस रिलेशनशिप को एक्यूरेटली डिस्क्राइब करती है. वही स्टैंडर्ड और स्टिमुलस उसकी इंटेंसिटी प्रेजेंट कर जाती है ऑब्जर्वर को, और उसके बाद इंटेंसिटी को करते करते रिपोर्टेड एक्सपीरियंस कितना बढ़ रहा है, ट्वाइस बढ़ रहा है, उससे ज़्यादा बढ़ रहा है. कई दफ़ा कोई स्टैंडर्ड स्टिमुलस नहीं भी दिया जाता, लेकिन बेसिक प्रिंसिपल वही रहता है. द ऑब्जर्वर असाइंस नंबर्स टू द स्टिमुलाई दैट आर प्रोपोर्शनेट टू perceived magnitude. So, the relationship between perceived magnitude and stimulus intensity for electric shock, line length and brightness. इसमें आप देख रहे हैं कि green line जो है वो which shows the line length is going on a slope. So वो जिस तरह आप इंटेंसिटी बढ़ाते हैं उसी तरह वो भी बढ़ती जाती है. ब्राइटनेस जो है उसका स्लोप ज़रा आगे जाके फ्लैट हो जाता है. लेकिन इलेक्ट्रिक शॉक जो है आप थोड़ा सा बढ़ाते हैं तो उसकी जो एस्टिमेशन करता है आपका ऑब्जर्वर वो बहुत हाई होती है. आप उसका हल्का सा इंटेंसिटी बढ़ाते हैं तो उसको वो 10 टाइम्स ज़्यादा पेनफुल लगता है. सो देर इज़ a characteristic of magnitude estimation. There is a response compression. As we discussed, doubling the intensity does not necessarily double the perceived brightness. And we can see this value. जितनी तेजी से इंटेंसिटी बढ़ती है उतनी तेजी से आपको नहीं लगता कि ये उतनी ही ब्राइट हो गई है. तो इंटेंसिटी को 9 से मल्टीप्लाई करके कई दफ़ा करना पड़ता है. एक और फिनोमिनन है रिस्पॉन्स एक्सपेंशन. उसमें आपकी जो इंक्रीजिंग है इंटेंसिटी की फ्रॉम 20 to 40, वो जो आपका परसेप्शन ऑफ शॉक है वो 6 to 49 पे ले जाता है. दिस इज कॉल्ड रिस्पॉन्स एक्सपेंशन. सो दैट इज व्हाट द कर्व डिस्क्राइब्स कि इंटेंसिटी का और सब्जेक्टिव एक्सपीरियंस का जो प्रपोर्शन है वो क्या चलता है. So the relationship between intensity of a stimulus and our perception of its magnitude follows the same general equation for each sense. The power functions that we see here are called Stevens power law.